The quiet goodbye Keanu Reeves stood at the edge of the stage, his hands resting gently at his sides. The lights had dimmed, the applause had faded, and the crowd had moved on. He didn't smile, didn't wave, didn't say a word. He just turned around slowly and walked into the shadows. He had made up his mind. Hollywood, fame, the flashing cameras, the endless scripts, it all felt distant now. For years he had given everything, his time, his energy, his heart, but something inside him had changed, something deep and silent. Like a quiet voice asking if any of this still mattered. Backstage, people whispered. They noticed the way Keanu had been pulling away, saying less, staying longer in the corners of rooms, instead of standing in the spotlight where he belonged. Some thought he was just tired. Others thought he was planning something. Only one person knew the truth, and she hadn't said a word. Not yet. Ana de Armas sat quietly by the exit, her fingers wrapped around a paper cup of cold tea. She had watched him from afar all night, just like she'd done the past few months. She knew his silences. She'd learned how to listen when he wasn't speaking that night. After everyone left, she walked alone down the hallway until she reached his door. It was slightly open. The light inside was low, and he was sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, staring at an old black-and-white photograph in his hand. It was from his first major film. A young Keanu Reeves, full of hope, standing in the sun with nothing but dreams in his eyes. He didn't look up when she stepped in. He didn't need to. "You're leaving, aren't you?" Ana asked softly. Keanu didn't speak for a long time. Then, finally, he nodded. "Double quotes I think I already have," he said. She walked over, sat down beside him, and rested her head on his shoulder. "Why now?" she asked. He closed his eyes. "Because I've said everything I wanted to say. And maybe it's time for someone else to speak now." Anna's heart ached at those words. She didn't try to stop him. She knew better than to fight someone who had already made peace with his decision. But still, a part of her refused to let go. She knew the world needed him, his quiet wisdom, his kindness that never asked for anything in return. The next morning, the news broke. Keanu Reeves retires from acting, no farewell speech, no interviews, just silence. Social media exploded. Fans were heartbroken. Hollywood stood still. People begged him to return. Directors offered him final projects, lifetime awards, even a blank check, but Keanu didn't respond to any of it. Ana, however, did something no one expected. She didn't post a message. She didn't hold a press conference. She simply walked into the same room where Keanu had once made his debut, and she stood on the same stage where he had once said his very first lines. She stood there with a script in her hand, not one for a film, but a letter. One she wrote the night he walked away. The cameras were on, the theater full. She opened the letter and began to read. "This isn't about a career. This isn't about an actor. This is about a man who gave the world more than just films. This is about kindness, about humility, about showing up even when no one claps." Keanu didn't leave because he was done. He left because he believed someone else needed the light more than he did. The audience was silent. Ana's voice trembled as she continued. And maybe he was right. Maybe we all need to stop waiting for heroes to save us and start becoming them instead. But I also believe something else. I believe he's not done yet. Not really, because a heart like his doesn't disappear, just changes form. That night, millions watched the video. It went viral within hours. People cried. They remembered moments in Keanu's films where he wasn't playing a character, he was just being himself. The small smiles, the way he listened, the way he made every scene feel honest. Even the quiet ones. Ana's words had touched something raw in the world, but behind the scenes, she wasn't done. She had a plan, and it started with finding the one. A person who still had the power to change everything. Keanu himself. The next morning, she got into her car, typed a single destination into her GPS, and drove away from Hollywood. No one knew where she went. Not yet. But her journey had begun. And it would lead to something no one could have expected, not even Keanu. The road to Now de Armas drove for hours without speaking a word. The city slowly disappeared behind her, swallowed by the mountains and the wide, quiet sky. She didn't know exactly where he was, but she had a feeling. Sometimes, when someone means that much to you, your heart leads the way better than any map ever could. She had packed lightly just a backpack, her notebook, a worn-out sweater Keanu had once forgotten in her trailer, and a letter she hadn't. The air was colder now, quieter too. No interviews, no flashing cameras. Just the sound of the road and her thoughts. Keanu had left Los Angeles without telling anyone his exact destination. But Anna remembered something he once said to her during a quiet dinner years ago. "If I ever vanish," he'd whispered with a soft smile, "I'll go where the trees outnumber the people." And now she was following that memory. Meanwhile, Keanu had found himself in a place most people wouldn't even notice on a map. A small cabin surrounded by pines, nestled near a lake that reflected the sky so clearly it made him feel like the world had no edges. Here he chopped wood with his hands, cooked simple meals, and let silence speak louder than words ever could. He had no phone, no internet, no noise. But he wasn't running away, he was just ... letting go. For the first time in years, he watched the sunrise without thinking about call times. He listened to the wind through the trees and remembered what it felt like to be no one. But even in that peace, something lingered. Anna, he thought of her often. Her laughter, her honesty, the way she listened when he didn't know what to say. He'd seen the video of her speech. He had found a news clipping at a local gas station weeks ago. A stranger had left the newspaper behind, and there he was. On the front page, with Anna's words beneath it, he didn't cry, just closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you." Back in her car, Anna reached the edge of a town so small it didn't even have a traffic light. She pulled over and stepped out. A local hardware store sat at the corner next to a diner with only 2 cars in the parking lot. The air smelled like pine needles and firewood. She walked into the diner, the woman behind. The counter gave her a curious look. "You're not from around here, are you?" Anna smiled kindly. "No, I'm looking for someone who..." "His name is Keanu. He's tall, quiet, and probably never introduced himself." The woman blinked. "The man in the green flannel, who only orders black coffee." Anna's heart jumped. "Yes, that's him. He comes by every few days. Usually sits by the window." Anna looked out the window, and for a moment she imagined him there sitting quietly, watching the world, not expecting to be seen. "Do you know where he stays?" "Not exactly," the woman said. "But folks say he's renting an old cabin by Silver Pine Lake. Real quiet place." Hannah thanked her, left a generous tip, and walked out into the crisp mountain air. She was close now. She could feel it. When she reached the lake an hour later, her breath caught in her throat. The view was endless. The water was like glass. Birds flew low over the surface, and the wind whispered through the branches. Then she saw it, a small cabin near the edge of the trees. Her feet felt heavy as she approached. She didn't want to scare him. She didn't want to intrude. But this was something she had to do. She walked up to the door. No knock, no words. Just stood there for a moment, listening then. Slowly the door creaked open. Keanu stood there, his eyes soft, his beard a little longer, and his smile quiet but warm. He didn't say anything, neither did she. Instead, he stepped aside, and she walked in. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of memories, of things they had shared and things they had left unsaid. "I saw your speech," he said at last. Anna nodded. "I meant every word." He looked down. "Why did you come?" "'Cause the world still needs you," she said. "And maybe so do I." Keanu sat down at the table and motioned for her to join him. "I'm not the same man I used to be." "Good," she said softly. "Neither am I." They talked for hours. Not about movies, not about fame. They talked about childhood, fears, loneliness, the weight of being known, and the peace of being forgotten. They talked about kindness and how rare it was, and how both of them were tired, not just from work, but from the constant need to be perfect. Anna didn't ask him to come back, but she told him something that changed everything. "There's a project," she whispered. "Not a film. Something real. Something about helping people. I want to use what we have, our voices, to tell the stories of those who've never had a stage." Keanu leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "You think people would care?" "They'll care," she said, "because it won't be about us. It'll be about them." For the first time in weeks, Keanu smiled like he meant it. He wasn't ready to return to Hollywood, but maybe he didn't need to. Maybe he could return ... to something bigger, something better. And with Anna beside him, maybe he could step into a new kind of spotlight, one that didn't shine on him but through him. Voices that were never hardied. Next morning, the lake was covered in fog. It moved slowly across the water like a blanket of quiet. Keanu stepped outside first, barefoot, holding a mug of warm tea. Mana followed a few minutes later, wrapped in his old sweater that still smelled like cedar and memories. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Something had shifted between them. Not romance, not something you could label. It was something deeper. Respect, understanding. A shared wound they both carried quietly. Fame had given them everything, and taken just as much. Anna opened her notebook on the porch and began writing. She wasn't writing lines for a movie. She was writing names. The people she had met over the years who were full of stories the world never noticed, people who had changed her in small, quiet ways. A street musician in Havana, a waitress in New Orleans, a mother in Texas who ran a food truck to keep her son in school. "We tell their stories," she said aloud. Keanu looked over, not as actors, but as listeners. Anna nodded. "Use what we have, our name, our reach, to shine light on people who don't get any?" Keanu rubbed his thumb along the rim of his mug. "I can do that." That was how it started. A small project, no producers, no agents, just two people with notebooks, cameras, and hearts that still wanted to do something good. They called it the Echo Project, because sometimes the smallest voices just need a place to echo into the world. They traveled without an announcement, quietly showing up in places no one expected. They took a train to Kansas to meet a young girl who built water filters from scrap plastic. They rode a dusty bus through Arizona to sit with a veteran who wrote poetry under a bridge. They visited a nurse in Detroit who paid for her patient's medicine out of her own pocket. No scripts, just truth. And with every story, something in Keanu came back to life. He didn't miss the stage anymore. He found something more real. They filmed everything using a small handheld camera. Anna did the interviews. Keanu carried the gear. He never stood in front of the lens. This wasn't about him, but the internet noticed. Someone spotted Anna and Keanu talking to a young teacher in a burned-out schoolyard. The photo was shared online. It went viral in less than a day. People didn't understand what they were doing at first, but when Anna uploaded the first video to a brand new channel, it only took hours for it to explode. Title of the first episode: Her classroom had no roof. But her smile taught more than any textbook. The comments poured in. People cried. People shared. People donated. And slowly, quietly, the Echo Project became something bigger than they expected. Keanu stayed silent online, as always. But Anna posted once. He walked away from the spotlight, not to disappear, but to shine it somewhere else. Still, not everything was easy. One night, after filming a story in a small town hit by a factory shutdown, they sat together in a motel room. The air conditioner buzzed. Anna was editing the footage. Keanu looked tired. "Are we doing enough?" He asked. Anna looked at him. "We're not fixing the world, Keanu, but we're listening. And that matters." He nodded, but something heavy still hung in his eyes. The next day, they returned to the town to check in on one of the families they had interviewed. A young boy had spoken to them about his dream of becoming a scientist. When they arrived, they found the boy waiting with something in his hand. It was a small toy rocket made from scrap, metal and painted with words in crayon. "For Mr. Keanu, because you believed in me." Keanu knelt down, took the rocket gently, and held it like it was something precious. He didn't speak for a long time. When he did, His voice cracked. "I think this is the best role I've ever played." Anna smiled, tears in her eyes. "You're not playing, Keanu. This is who you are." They left the town that evening, both changed in a way neither could fully explain. They drove into the hills, found a quiet cabin again, and sat in silence. But this time, it was the silence of peace, not retreat, not sadness, just calm. Keanu looked at Anna and said something he hadn't said in years. "Thank you for finding me." She reached for his hand and held it gently. "You were never lost." They stayed like that as the sun dipped behind the trees, and somewhere in the world, another story was waiting to be told, and they would be ready. When the world finally listened, the Echo Project had grown faster than either of them expected. The first few videos were shared quietly. No headlines, no sponsors. Just people watching, feeling, and sharing. But by the fourth story, something had shifted. The world had begun to listen. Anna and Keanu sat in a small room above a bakery in Vermont, editing footage from their latest trip, a story about a single father who worked 3 jobs to keep his daughter in school. His hands were rough. His eyes looked tired. But when he spoke about his daughter, they lit up with something pure. Anna watched the screen, tears rolling down her cheeks. Keanu sat beside her, silent, watching not just the video but the hope inside it. "We're showing them something real," she whispered. Keanu nodded. "Something that can't be written in a script." Outside, the snow began to fall. Inside, their small laptop glowed with a light that wasn't just digital, it was human that night. Uploaded the 4th episode, title, "He sold his truck to buy her books." No, she's teaching him to read. Within 24 hours. The video reached over 5 million views. News outlets picked it up. Headlines appeared everywhere. Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas step away from Hollywood for something far greater. The Echo Project brings forgotten stories to the front page. But not all of the attention was kind. Some people accused them of chasing attention. Others said it was all staged. Anna saw the comments. She read them one by one. Some of them hurt, others made her doubt. Did we go too far? She asked Keanu one evening, sitting by a fire in a friend's empty cabin. Keanu stared at the flames. "No, even if people think we're pretending." He turned to her, his voice calm. "Truth doesn't need everyone to believe in it. It just needs to be told." Anna looked down, but it hurts. He reached over, gently touching her wrist. "Then we know we still feel something. That's a gift." The next morning, something unexpected happened. They received a message through their anonymous email account. The subject line read, "You changed my father's life." Inside was a letter from the daughter of the single father they had featured. She wrote about how, after the video went viral, strangers from around the world sent money to help them. More than that, a local school offered the father a job. He was now teaching children how to fix old machines. Every night his daughter read him stories. Anna read the message aloud. Her voice broke by the end. Keanu didn't say a word. Instead, he picked up the toy rocket the little boy had given him days before and placed it gently beside their laptop. "This is why," he said. "This is all the reason we'll ever need." They continued their journey. Next stop, Mississippi. There, they met a woman who had opened her home to foster children, even though she barely had enough to feed herself. She had scars on her arms, the result of a fire she survived years ago. Her voice shook when she spoke, but her heart was steady. "I don't need much," she told Anna. "Just enough to keep them safe." Keanu asked her gently, "Why do you do it?" She looked at him and smiled. "Because someone once saved me when I didn't feel worth saving. And now, I just pass it on." They recorded everything, the cracked walls, the bunk beds, squeezed into a tiny room. The smiles of children who had known too much pain and too little love. They uploaded the video with a simple title. She gave them everything she never had. Within hours, thousands of people reached out. People offered donations, clothes, food, even therapy services. The woman cried when Anna showed her the response. "I thought the world had forgotten me," she whispered. Anna hugged her tightly.
"Add any more?"
In a quiet moment later that evening, Anna looked at Keanu and asked something she hadn't dared ask before. "Do you miss it?" He looked at her. "What?" The old life? The cameras? The movies? The fame, he thought for a moment. Then he smiled. Sometimes I miss the craft, but not the noise. Anna smiled back. I think this is the best role you've ever played. Keanu laughed gently. You said that before. I'll say it again, she whispered, 'cause it's true. But just when everything seemed to be rising, something unexpected struck. A powerful studio executive, someone who once tried to hire Keanu back for a big-budget film, publicly criticized the Echo project. He claimed it was emotional manipulation and accused Anna and Keanu of using vulnerable people for clout. The backlash online was sharp suddenly. The comments turned angry. People questioned their intentions again. Anna was shaken. They don't understand, she whispered. They weren't there. Keanu walked over and sat beside her. He didn't try to explain it away. He just took her hand. Then we tell them the truth, he said. Double quotes, how? We go back to where it started. We show them not just the stories of others, but ours. Anna looked at him, eyes wide. You mean share our story? Keanu nodded slowly. It's time. They had never told anyone the real reason he walked away, or how she followed him, or how the project really began, until now. The story behind the silent second knew Reeves sat across from Ana de Armas in a quiet room with bare walls and a single camera resting on a tripod. The light outside was soft and golden. Inside, the silence between them felt full, like a page waiting for its first line. They were about to do something they had never done since the Echo project began. They were going to tell the truth about themselves. Keanu reached over and clicked the camera on Anna, inhaled slowly. This is not a movie, she said gently into the lens. This is just us. Keanu looked at the camera next, his voice soft. We didn't plan to be here, not like this. We were tired of everything, of pretending, of being seen but not truly known. The video began with them sitting side by side, sharing their story, how Keanu had disappeared from Hollywood quietly, how Anna had searched for him, how they had found something unexpected, not just in each other, but in the world beyond the stage. I was done, Keanu said. Not angry, just ... Done. Something inside me felt like it had finished its part. Anna turned to him and nodded. I wasn't ready to say goodbye. Not just to you, but to the good you could still do. The camera didn't move. There were no edits, no filters. Just raw honesty. They talked about the first story they filmed, about the people they met, the joy, the pain, the doubts. They admitted their fears, how sometimes they questioned if anyone really cared, how the negative comments had made them second-guess everything. But then, Anna said, we met a little girl in Texas who told me, I want to be like you, not famous, but kind, and that was enough. Keanu looked down for a moment. When he looked back up, his eyes were moist. I never wanted to be a hero, he said. I just wanted to do something that mattered. And then he said something no one had ever heard from him before. I've lost people. I've loved and lost quietly. I've grieved in silence because I thought the world didn't want to see that side of me. But maybe that's the only side that truly mattered. Anna reached over, touched his hand gently, and maybe the world needs to see that side now more than ever. The video was nearly an hour long. They ended it with a message not about themselves, but about everyone who had ever felt invisible. Anna looked directly into the camera. Your story matters. Even if no one's listening yet, don't stop telling it, Keanu added, and we'll keep listening, no matter what they say, no matter what they write. They uploaded the video without a fancy title, just 5 words. Why we walked away. Truth. Within 12 hours, it had over 10 million views. Within a day, it was trending in over 20 countries. But something different happened this time. Instead of outrage or drama, people responded with vulnerability. In the comments, thousands of strangers shared their own stories. A mother wrote about her struggle raising 2 children after her husband left. A teenage boy shared how Keanu's silence gave him peace during his darkest nights. A nurse said Anna's kindness in the videos reminded her of why she chose her path. People weren't just watching anymore, they were connecting, they were healing. Echo Project had become something bigger than two actors. It had become a movement. That week, Independent Foundation reached out to support their work, not to control it, not to brand it. Just to help fund more stories, more travels, or light in forgotten corners. Anna hesitated. If we take the money, she asked Keanu, does it change us? Keanu thought for a long time before answering. Only if we forget why we started. They agreed on one condition. They would never feature themselves in any future video again. The spotlight would always stay on the people who needed it. The world responded with overwhelming support. Schools began using their videos in classrooms to teach empathy. Communities held screenings to raise funds for local families. One university launched a program inspired by their work, training students to become story gatherers in their own towns. But just when everything seemed to be shining brighter than ever, something unexpected happened. One of the people. They had featured an elderly man who spoke about homelessness and resilience suddenly passed away. His story had reached millions, but his death left Anna shaken. We were too late, she whispered through tears. Keanu pulled her close. No. We gave his voice wings, and it flew farther than he ever imagined. They attended his funeral in silence, sitting quietly among strangers who had seen the video. The man had no family, but his final words had echoed across the world. A small child placed a flower beside his grave. When Anna asked her why, the child said, because I saw him on Mommy's phone and I wanted him to have something beautiful. Anna? Broke down. Keanu held her hand the entire ride home. They didn't film anything for days. They needed time to breathe, to grieve. Then one night, under a sky full of stars, Anna looked up and whispered, "We keep going." Keanu smiled gently. Yes, because the world still whispers. And we're here to echo it. And just like that, the journey continued. The last light. The lasting Echo Project entered its second year quietly. No press tours, no interviews, just more stories. Keanu and Anna moved silently from town to town, country to country. Anywhere they heard of someone doing something extraordinary with nothing but heart. They met a blind sculptor who carved dreams from memory. They met a teenage girl who used her violin to calm shelters full of scared animals. They filmed a former prisoner who now mentored kids to keep them from making the same mistakes he did, everywhere. They went, they listened, and the world in return listened back. Schools began holding Echo Days, where children stood up and told stories of kindness in their own homes and neighborhoods. Libraries set up small booths for people to record their memories and messages. Thousands of people, young and old, said one thing again and again: someone finally sees me. But with all the light they had spread, there came one more moment of deep darkness. Anna received a call one afternoon while they were editing a story in a quiet village in Portugal. A family member had passed away suddenly, someone she had been close to. She didn't cry at first. She just packed her bag and stood at the door, her face still, her eyes distant. "I have to go," she whispered to Keanu. He nodded. "Go," he said. "I'll wait here." But as she turned to leave, she stopped. "Don't wait too long." He watched her walk away. For the first time in their journey, he felt the loneliness return. Not the kind that came from being unknown, the kind that came from being incomplete. Days passed, then weeks. Anna didn't call and Keanu didn't ask. He knew grief was a private room with no lock and no map. So, he waited, but not in silence. He kept telling stories. He filmed a boy with a stutter who built radios from old wires. He interviewed a woman who saved bees after losing her husband. He recorded a small-town barber who gave free haircuts to people who couldn't afford them, all while humming lullabies his mother used to sing. The videos were different now, deeper, softer, filled with pauses that felt like prayers. People noticed the change. They said the Echo Project had become more than storytelling. It had become a kind of healing, and still. Keanu waited until one evening nearly 2 months later, he returned to their cabin in the woods and found a small package at the door. No, just a flash drive and a folded photograph. The photo was old, was from the first night they talked. On the floor backstage, when Keanu had told her he was done, on the back, written in Ana's handwriting, "Maybe we were just beginning." He plugged in the flash drive. It was a video. Ana sat in a quiet field under a tree. The sun was setting behind her. She looked calm, worn, but sure. "I needed time," she said softly. "But in that time I realized something. We can't carry everyone's pain. We're not supposed to. We can remind people that their pain matters, that someone sees it, someone is still out there listening." She paused, then added, "And I miss listening with you." Keanu closed the laptop and exhaled slowly. He knew what to do. 2 days later, Yana returned to the cabin. She found Keanu sitting on the porch, sipping tea. No words were spoken. He simply stood, walked toward her, and opened his arms. She walked into them, and for a long time, they just held each other. After that, something changed. Not in the world, but between them. They still told stories, but they stopped filming themselves completely. They became ghosts behind the lens, gentle, unseen, present, and the Echo Project. It kept growing. People around the world began starting their own versions. Echo Canada, Echo India, Echo South Africa became a movement without borders, one without names or faces, only stories. Years passed. Keanu and Ana rarely appeared in public again, but they were never forgotten. People still told stories about them, how they came, listened, and left quietly, leaving behind more light than when they arrived. One day, a young girl from Honduras was asked in a classroom who her heroes were. She didn't say a singer or a movie star. She simply said, "The Echo People," and that was enough. Some say they were last seen sitting beside a lake, watching the sun rise, still holding a camera, still listening. No more red carpets, no more awards, but something better, eh? Right? Life filled with meaning, with purpose, with kindness, and somewhere in the world, a new story begins every day because of the light they left behind.